In this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. Now, Benjamin Franklin said that in 1789, and death is a particularly sensitive subject to talk about in any language, but especially when it's not your mother tongue. You risk saying something inappropriate or offending people. So in this video, I'm going to tell you how to talk about death in English, what to say when someone has died, and at the end of the video, we're going to look at some more colloquial idioms, which are maybe less appropriate, but very common in English. Okay, let's do this. Now, I've noticed that a lot of my students tend to confuse the words die, died, dead, and death, which is normal because they sound very similar, don't they? So I thought we should start this video by just spending a few seconds looking at those. So first we have the verb. The verb is to die, and it's quite simple. In the past, died, past participle, died too. I think the best way to remember this, and maybe it's in a little bit bad taste, but to think of Lady Di. So remember the sentence, Lady Di died in 1997. So then you'll always remember that die, died, died are the conjugations of the verb. And then we have the adjective, dead, to be dead. So Winston Churchill is dead. That is the state he is in. That's the adjective. And then, as we heard at the beginning of this video, death, nothing is certain except death and taxes. So that's the noun. Death comes to us all, unfortunately. But in English, we often try to avoid saying the verb die, or even the adjective and the noun, especially when we're talking to a relative or a friend of somebody who has recently died. It's a little bit too direct. So we have alternative words which are more appropriate. For example, the phrasal verb to pass away. It basically means to die, but it's much less direct and much more sensitive. And we could also use expressions such as no longer with us. So John is no longer with us, for example, or has left us. So Mary has left us. So these are just less direct ways to refer to death. Now, what would you say to somebody that you know, maybe an acquaintance, a colleague, or a friend, or maybe a family member who has lost somebody? Now, here you need to be very careful because you need to say something appropriate, and we have some very fixed expressions that we use in this situation. So, for example, you can say, my sincere condolences. So this is a very common expression. So you can say it in writing, if you're writing a condolence card, or a letter, or if you're even speaking to somebody on the phone or face to face, maybe at the funeral. Then you can say something like, I'd like to express my sincere condolences. Okay, so that's something very fixed that you can use, and it's very safe and appropriate. You can also say, my deepest sympathy to you and your family, or I'm so sorry for your loss, or simply I'm so sorry. Now, if you're speaking to somebody face to face, again at the funeral, or maybe it's the first time you see this person after their relative has died, you can simply say, I'm so sorry, or I'm so sorry for your loss. Now, when somebody loses someone, when somebody close to you dies, you grieve. The verb is to grieve. The noun is grief. So to grieve is to feel the pain of death. And Queen Elizabeth II said, grief is the price we pay for love, which is a very nice way of looking at it, I think. Obviously, she lost her husband of 73 years, Prince Philip, recently, so she was grieving. But we also say to mourn or to be in mourning. Now, mourn is similar to grieve, but to grieve is more internal and more personal. To mourn is more of an external expression of that time after someone has died. Okay, let's finish this video by looking at 3 common idioms to refer to death. So you have to be careful with these. Of course, you should not use them in the situations I have just spoken about before, at a funeral, or if you're seeing somebody for the first time after their relative or close friend has died. That's obvious, I think. I don't need to say that, but just in case. No, we use these expressions when you're talking about somebody maybe who has died a long time ago, so it's not so relevant to the present, or somebody you had no close relationship with. Neither of the people in the conversation had a close relationship with. So the first and probably the most common way to refer to death in a colloquial idiomatic form is to kick the bucket. To kick the bucket. So you could say, for example, I hear that football player from the 70s kick the bucket. What was his name? Okay, so it's somebody you have no relationship with. It's somebody famous, so you're not really offending anybody by using that expression. Another way to refer to death is to bite the dust. Now, you've probably heard that expression in the famous Queen song, Another One Bites the Dust. So again, similar to kick the bucket, we use it in a similar situation. Bite the dust can also be used in other more figurative situations, less literal. So we're not talking about the death of a person, but we're talking about the death of an idea, for example. I expressed an idea in the meeting at work, but it bit the dust immediately. So it wasn't popular, it didn't survive, it died immediately. Or a business, for example. I started a business 10 years ago, but unfortunately it bit the dust, so the business died. And one more expression we use for death, a colloquial expression, is to pop one's clogs. So similar to kick the bucket, we use it when we're referring to somebody we don't know well, neither of the people in the conversation knows well, and that probably they died a long time ago, so it has no real effect on the present. So for example, maybe you'd say, when did the milkman pop his clogs? It was a few years ago now, wasn't it? So again, it's somebody you know, but you don't have any close relationship with. Okay, I hope that helps you understand how and when we use different vocabulary to talk about death in English. As I said, it's a very sensitive subject, so be careful, but using those expressions, you should be okay. Okay, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you soon for another video. Bye.